interception by Jaquan McMillan.
What?
Sean McDermott wants a conference are thrilled that they get the ball. We'll talk.
And I've had a chance to look at, it's hard for me to understand why it was ruled the way it was ruled. And if it is ruled that way, then why wasn't it slowed down? Just to make sure that we have this right. That would have made a lot of sense to me, to make sure that we have this thing right, because that's a pivotal play in the game. We have the ball at the 20, maybe kicking a game-winning field goal right there. So I'll just leave it at that. But I'm saying it because I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I'm standing up for us. Because what went on is not how it should go down, in my estimation. That play, these guys spent 3 hours out there playing football, pouring their guts out, to not even say, hey, let's just slow this thing down. That's why I'm bothered.
In your eyes, was it catch down by contact?
In my eyes, it was. Yes, in my eyes, it was. But even if it wasn't, okay, let's just say that, and I'm being objective. Even if it wasn't, the players are owed, to me, hey, let's stop it, let's slow it down, let's put the head referee and give him a chance to look at the monitor just to make sure.
And that's exactly. Turn the page to what we would have been talking about for the last 8, 9, 10 minutes. Had Knicks's ankle been intact leaving the game, is what Bills fans are thinking this very morning.
Can you imagine being in Western New York this morning? It's always a tragedy with these people. And if this was a radio show, we could just go to the phones for 4 hours.
Yes.
You know, we'll just go to the phones and take calls from Buffalo. Let's do some fan service, though. Let's, again, get into these calls that Rich did in the highlight right away. Down at the end of the game now, we had 2 back-to-back pass interference calls. This one, I didn't think much of the call, but again, as we said, there's a roughing the passer anyway, so it's a little bit moot. Sure, hand fighting, fine. I know the timing is terrible, and everyone's, I think that's pass interference. I don't have a problem with that call. Obviously, Trey White did, and he got his money's worth there. But then we get to the filet mignon. We get to the infamous one, the one that is allegedly survive the ground is the phrase that is everywhere. And this goes back to Calvin Johnson. This goes back to Jesse James. If you know all these, he doesn't survive the ground. McDermott was talking about, McDermott couldn't challenge it because it's overtime. Calls a timeout just so we can have a hot minute. The season just altered completely. And I think for a lot of fans at home, it was what the hell is going on? Someone in New York is pressing a button, and there's this Orwellian presence that I can't see and I don't hear on CBS. Why is my season over? Because I think he caught it. I think that was a little jarring, and I think Sean McDermott's comments after the game reflect.
Well, the question is, again, and Walt Anderson's joining shortly, is the NFL has been a leader in referees talking to fans, explaining what's just happened, to the point where Major League Baseball umpires started getting mic'd up and explaining to fans what has just been reviewed. NBA officials and college officials now go to a microphone on a scorer's table and explain to the fans what just happened. And we're used to that happening. I don't know if that happened and CBS didn't show it, or because it was going so fast, or we never got Carl Sheffers standing in front of the cameras and saying, after review, this is what happened, and explaining it. And instead, you now have an NFL head coach firing off a timeout to get an explanation. It's talking about how he's standing up for his city and having an issue with the call in and of itself, potentially maybe being motivated by the way it was communicated to him or not, and the way it wasn't communicated to millions of people at home, which leads everyone to think what is up, which is kind of crazy in and of itself. And I understand there's a lot of gambling aspects of it. People have got their antennas up as if they're putting the thumb on the scale against the Bills, but didn't call a holding penalty in the end zone that would have walked it off anyway for the Broncos. They were just waiting for a simultaneous catch that the whole country's going to talk about. It makes no sense, but it would have made a little bit more sense to fans if we had gotten a stoppage and an explanation.
And I guess the only thing I would say about that is if you felt like there was something to review, because when you talk about going to the ground, the only thing they really could have reviewed is did the ball hit the ground, and it would have been incomplete. Because once they went to the ground, the ball ends up in the hands of the defender, and you've got to finish the catch. Whoever has it when the whistle blows is where that play ends. And so that, to me, is the interesting part. Is I know we all wanted more clarification, but for an official, it would have to be, oh, did the ball hit the ground? Was it incomplete?
Well, or
because the rest of the call is the right call by the letter of the law, which is a weird letter of the law for all of us that we don't fully understand.
Again, if you're ruling that Cooks was not a runner, because he was in the process of making a catch, a runner, an incompletion, the ground can't cause a turnover if it's a runner, but it sure can cause an incompletion if you're catching it.
Right.
And if the ball was incomplete, then it was never hitting the ground and thus an interception. Just an explanation.
Yeah, I know.
Right. No,
if that's what it was, because you can't see if there was an act common to the game being made by someone on the ground.
Right. Because then we get in on Twitter, there's 15 other comps, and this play happened on this play, this play on the Mims catch in the game, and then we're into the upside down where, well, if that's the call, well, why wasn't it on this one that I just showed you video of? And people are mad, and that's part of the fun of the playoffs, actually.
Walt Anderson is going to join us.
Call with Walt Anderson. Walt, this is a perfect time to have you on. We do this segment all year long, but now more than ever, it is so important to go through what happened in overtime yesterday. So let's break it down. First off, why wasn't it ruled a catch?
Colleen, the process of the catch, and the reason it's not a catch is as the receiver's going to the ground, as soon as he hits the ground, the ball is immediately loose. And in review, which both the replay official at the stadium and New York spent the time looking at it. What was the call on the field? The ball was loose when he first hit the ground. They confirmed that's what happened. The ball never hit the ground. That's why they were able to confirm the call of an interception.
Well, 50 million people were watching this play, all right? And it went like that. It was fast. It was who made this call? The people on the field. New York. Was it you in New York? Who was looking at it in New York? I agree with Sean McDermott. It happened really fast. It was a quick rule.
Yes, it's the officiating staff. They have an officiating staff of instant replay officials. They have multiple people at the same time reviewing. That the call on the field was the ball was immediately loose when they hit the ground. It didn't hit the ground and was gained control by the defender. That's why it was an interception.
All right, just watching this coming really slow at me here. Brandon Cooks looks like he hit 1 foot, 2 feet, and a knee before he hit the ground with the ball. Let's take a look at that again. Doesn't that
clearly the ball is immediately loose when he hits the ground. So by rule, it's not a catch. Now, the fact that the ball didn't hit the ground, it stays live. And so it can end up either being caught by the receiver, if he can reach up and grab it, or in this case, it was the defender who got control of the ball.
Okay, well, I thought maybe that's the knee was the third part of that catch and constituted a catch. Let's talk about Carl Sheffers because he's
Coach, that's a good point. That's a good point because a lot of people think with the knee, but if he'd already established himself as a runner, say he was upright, he got 3 steps, the catch process is over. If you're a runner and then you go to the ground while you're contacted, then that knee puts you down by contact.
Okay.
But not in the process of making a catch.
Carl Sheffers is a good one. He's been around a long time. I was just hoping, I'm just a fan watching this game along with millions of people. Why didn't he explain this then and explain it to the coach, go under the hood and be thorough like we see time and time again in such a big game like this?
They stopped the game for lesser moments all season
Sean McDermott had to take a timeout just to say, hey, can we look at this thing a little bit closer?
You know, that happens quite a bit, Coach, but again, you have to realize every play behind the scenes is being reviewed by multiple people. They're looking at all these angles. And part of the guidelines that the league has established is when replay, you have a ruling on the field, and when replay has all of these angles to take a look and see, was the ruling on the field wrong or was the ruling on the field correct? And if you can confirm that the ruling on the field was correct, they really want to move the game along, and they don't want to have unnecessary stoppages. And I understand, I get people's point that, well, it'd been good to get a little more explanation from that standpoint. But I personally thought that really CBS did a pretty good job with their analysts of explaining why it was not a completed catch and was, in fact, an interception.
I think Carl should have done that for everybody, not CBS. I don't want to hear from Tony Romo. I want to hear from Carl.
Yeah, I think just more transparency would be good. I think that is, even Sean McDermott didn't have a chance to really get the explanation until after he had his initial press conference. Then he got the pool report and saw what Carl Sheffers said, and then he did his own pool report again. So it's just you know, a lot of controversy with the game last night. It didn't even end there. After the Broncos were driving, Trey White was called for DPI, and that gave the Broncos the ball at the 8-yard line, essentially ending the game. Was that the right call in your eyes?
Yes. The defender was clearly, Colleen, he was early. It's not one of those bang-bang plays that happens at the same time the ball gets there. It's clearly early.
It is absolutely true. And